live because it's the easiest way to do an audio talk. Because I just wanted to talk about consciousness for a bit. It's what I really enjoy talking about, pointing at. And what I'm getting at right now is how we can talk about it. We can talk about all we want. We can talk about God, all these things, but if we are not pointing at the experience of the reality, whatever it is, that is conscious, that is obviously aware and hearing these words right now. And the hearing, whatever, it doesn't matter. What we're pointing at, whether you can hear or not, is the experience of being aware. And that experience does not need objects. It does not inherently have objects. It is not a process that arises. It's not a property of a human being, of a body mind, of a world. I think even when we're being all spiritual and whatnot, a lot of us tend to hold this subtle belief that is kind of ultimately a little materialistic or something along those lines, because we believe that whatever is hearing these words right now is limited in time and space. That, like the body or the mind, it's a process of these things, or it's just like another phenomena that arises in a greater reality. But we don't have evidence for that, although we often subtly believe that below all our other beliefs. It tends to be one of those ones that upholds all the other beliefs about reality that we hold. And once that belief gets taken out from the bottom of all the other ones, then all the other ones tend to fall down following the dissolution of that foundational belief. Because we don't have evidence that the consciousness that is hearing these words right now, as Francis says, that it's just another thing, that it's limited in time and space, that it's a product of a body. You know, there's this kind of subtle belief in Christianity that I'm very aware of, that most people in Christianity hold, although they don't talk about it. It doesn't come up. It's not something that I think even most people notice that they believe. But it's that same subtle kind of quiet belief of our consciousness, our being, is a separate being from whatever the ultimate being is. And that ultimate being cannot possibly be inside of ourselves, because we are separate selves. That's the kind of one of those foundational beliefs. But we have no evidence for that. That doesn't, you know, we build a world on those beliefs. We have relationships that are built on that belief. But it doesn't mean it's true. I mean, we're free to believe that. And hell, we're free to feel and be convinced that that's true. But it still doesn't make it true. It doesn't make, just because we're so convinced in our body and our mind. It's like, oh yeah, but your body's over there, so I'm separate from you, so I'm separate. And I'm not the source of all things, because that's what Satan would say. He's so prideful, blah blah blah. Whatever the angle is, like, I get it. No, I'm not saying that this body mind thing called Daniel is God. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what non-duality is pointing at. That's a misunderstanding, and that's also unfair, because it's really easy for someone, especially someone who's still in a religion type of situation with those types of beliefs, those religious and supposedly spiritual beliefs. It's really easy to feel like that you took the rug out from under non-duality when you think that the whole thing is trying to say that my limited body, mind, person situation is the source of all things and is God. But that's not what we're talking about. That's not what non-duality is pointing at. And that brings me to, again, what Francis very beautifully leads people to, which is, we don't have to make positive assertions about reality, but it's really helpful, because we don't know. But it's really helpful to make negative ones, because we can say a lot about a lot of the things that we don't know, right? I don't know that the consciousness that is hearing these words right now is limited, right? And I can say that. We can say that because we don't know. And that's a really special step, an important step to take, which is being able to admit things like, I don't actually have any evidence that the consciousness that is hearing these words right now is limited, that it has a shape, that it is in space and time, that is a property of a body mind, because I'm aware, canary in the coal mine, I guess, I am aware of a body, of a mind, of thinking, of a world, and I'm aware of those things. Those things are objects, those things are in perceptual experience. Now, they're real, but they're reality, they are real perceptions, they're real things, but they don't have the same reality. They don't have the same, I can't point to consciousness the same way. I can't, in my real experience, I cannot point at consciousness in the same way that I can point at things, perceptions, the world, the body, people. Those are objects. Those are things that I can point at, but again, the consciousness that is aware of these things cannot be pointed at as an object. It doesn't arise. It doesn't disappear. It isn't born. It doesn't die. It doesn't go away. It doesn't show up. Which is why, it's a misunderstanding to say that God or whatever shows up, because that's not how it happens. And that's why those like Francis, us who are talking here, about non-duality, we use the term unveiling or revelation because it's more accurate. It's not that there's a separate consciousness in a body mind and that's who we are, and then God shows up. It's an unveiling. It's a revelation. It's if we're honest about our experience when things tear apart and we have a glimpse for a moment of the ever presence of our being, of this. One of the things we tend to realize or come away with, or notice, is, oh, this didn't show up. This being, this beingness, this being aware, this presence, this is what is real. This is always here. This is what is real. I don't know anything else. Perceptions, even the world, we can say comes and goes. But we can't say that about consciousness. We just can't. We can't make that conclusion. And that's why in these conversations, if you're here for this conversation about reality, non-duality, we are very softly being reminded of our true nature, of what's already here, of the reality of our being, of consciousness. We're not coming to conclusions about a God out there and a separate self here, because I'm not interested in that. And if you're here for this conversation, I don't think you're interested in that either. It can be really fun to talk about that, to kind of go down that road, but that's a different road. That's religion, that's thinking, that's, but here, what we're talking about here, we're not pointing out a God out there. We're not trying to understand reality in that way. We're trying to see what's really real and to see if we can see that, because we can see that, but we can't see it as an object. If you think you're a person, if you think you're a separate entity, as Francis would say, you're cooked. Everything that comes from there, if you don't let that belief go, is going to be tainted and held up by that original belief, which I would argue is the quote unquote original sin, is believing you're separate in the first place. Yeah, sure, the body is. I mean, even the body isn't separate, but it's not, the body is not, it doesn't have its own, there isn't a consciousness that is separate from the consciousness of God. I mean, it's hard to say that even. It's tricky to use words because we're not pointing at objects. We're not playing that game. The same thing that hears these words right now, whatever that is, that reality, the consciousness that is listening right now, that is aware, is the reality we're pointing at. That is the reality that you are. That is your true nature. It never goes away. It was never born. And this is where peace is found. This is the fountain of presence. This is the source of being. And if you jump immediately to believing that you're a person again, that's fine, but you're aware of that, right? You're aware of the sense of a person, and I would encourage you to be open to the possibility that the awareness that is hearing these words is not limited. It is not a property of a body, mind, or a person. It is that eternal, infinite, timeless nature that we call God. And you are that.